Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ed the Pagan Show, where I'm going to talk tonight about the dangers that people see against the pagan community. And while they may not see it in a big way, they're there. And this idea of the First Amendment has been there to protect us all along, and that somehow it's going to magically protect us in the future. What started this was a fact that I posted to Facebook on my page and to other pages, and it got spread out pretty fast. That basically Homeland Security, ICE, and DOJ, that complex is looking for an answer. Is magic, more importantly, is items, tokens, talismans, and other actions of magic, be it chance or whatever, condone a threat? Now, we know it doesn't actually, in the law, have any actual effect. And I'm going to get into that. What if that immunity is stripped away? But they asked me, where did you get this information? And I'll give it to you. And here's where it starts. Back on February 6th, 2025, there was an eradicating anti-Christian bias from the government. And it's a very complicated little piece. Talk about things that are unfairly targeting Christians. It included a lot of things like demonstrations, pro-life demonstrations, and things of that nature, and they wanted to not do so. And then they expanded the Antifa executive order, and on 12/24/25, they wrote a memo NJ 197, I believe, and you can find it as basically stating that they want to identify people that are acting against the government, is acting against the government. And in acting on that governmental action, they want to be able to charge them with domestic terrorism. And so that was very, very important. And so here's the last piece. And I'm going to bring on Rev Don with me in a minute, but I'm going to get to, so where did I get my information about this action? I have a source within, I have a source. But let me get a little bit more. In the Dirksen building in downtown Chicago, where this question is being asked, because it's not being asked against Wicca. It's not being about heathens. It's very particular Afro-diasporic religions, Santeria, the Botanicas, the Bodegas, because they are utilizing it. It's also been asked because of New Orleans. So it isn't being asked against white witches or practitioners of magic, though it can be used against that. It's really about people of color. And because I've been working very distinctly on being involved with a lot of actions on the south side of Chicago and been involved with Chicago support activities for more than 2 decades. Yeah, people don't know that. I'm on a task force that is helping making sure the law is passed. This law I'm talking about is it violence? Is it violence, or is it a threat? And the problem is that magic is not allowed to be seen as legal. I mean, it's not a legal force. It's not like a gun. It's not like electricity. It's not like even a frying pan. You can prove you've hurt somebody with a frying pan, but you can't necessarily prove that someone has been hit by a spell and is affected by it. Now, there have been a few cases. I'm going to do some more research on this. But yeah, and so they have to charge in the past, such as I was down in when I was down in Louisiana, and we helped helped get a law changed at Livingston Parish that had to say tarot cards and other forms of divination were illegal, and so we've had to pass laws or get them to repeal these laws. Right now, Serpent's Kiss in Philadelphia, I believe, is fighting off another case of this, and she's not backing down. But let me go ahead in particular. So I got the source. It's inside. I'm not going to reveal anymore because it would be dangerous. But they're the research. They've done research. They're doing research, and this one has crossed the desk. Can totems, hoodoo dolls, And they gave us a really much longer list of physical actions, including chants, powders. Powders are the dangerous one. Now, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Powders are the number one places that we are susceptible because every powder, no matter what it is considered susceptible to being a toxin. And until they test it, they have to assume that it's a toxin if they're arresting you. So if you have flash fleet powder or money powder, even if you have garlic salt, because you like garlic salt so much, they could take this in and say it's a suspected event and send it to the labs to test it. And they can hold you for that period of time. So that is where my source came from, right out of the heart of Chicago. I'm part of an action that has been involving. I'm a former paralegal, not a former paralegal. I still have my accreditation. But I worked for a law firm, Senator Howard Carroll, for a decade. I've been involved. And I'm a citizen journalist, which I've always been very good at. I've also fought other fights. I don't make these statements lightly. There's a whole bunch of people saying that I'm lying, that the First Amendment protect them. We're going to get into that. Hi, Don. Welcome.
Hello.
Stepping into a hailstorm.
Well, the things you're saying are very important. And one of the things that people, I think, at this time need to be very aware of, it's all well and good to say, oh, garlic powder, the one you mentioned, is completely innocent.
Right.
But that takes time to establish. Mm-hmm. In the moment, you know what it is, but it would be a question. The rights that we have theoretically on paper are entirely dependent on whether or not others are going to acknowledge them. I think a lot of people are forgetting these aspects of the situations that we're
facing. Let's go ahead and remind them. Let's go ahead and remind them. So they think that it's been automatic, that we say, oh, that's our First Amendment rights, and we get it. They've acted as if you can just put up like a shield, right?
Well, there have been certain times in living memory when these things actually were respected. But it doesn't seem to be the case right at the moment.
Well, when was it respected in our community? Why did we have to go and take almost a 10-year problem to get the Pinnacle Quest? Soldiers dying on the battlefield could not get their own pentagram on their thing. Mm-hmm. How is that freedom of speech? How is that our freedom?
Well, and when that fight was eventually won, they admitted it was about religious prejudice. Right. And you're right, that took years and years of fighting for something that should have been automatic. And that's kind of my point. Just because the paper says you have X right doesn't necessarily mean anything.
So let's talk about the simple one: tarot cards, psychology, and other things. There was a lot of money and energy spent in getting them at the beginning illegalized, and they're illegal in a lot of states. Even in the city of Chicago, you cannot do it out of a shop legally. A shop closed down, was it 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, because they couldn't do readings out of it, and they wouldn't let them, and that for any shop is a big part of it, because you have to be in an industrial zone to an industrial zone, same as pornography. We don't have porn shops in Chicago. We have one on the north side. We just don't have them anymore. Now, Chicago.
This is an important point because there are ways to suppress things other than overtly suppressing them.
Right. So the idea that, for a long time, and people still do it. What do we have to do for tarot cards? For entertainment purposes only.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that and there have been a variety of other things I've seen that people have used to get around anti-tarot blue laws. One of the ones I remember, back when we were working with J&M Psychic Fairs, there was a weekend where they found out the town they were reading in had an anti-tarot law. They could not sell psychic readings. It was an anti-psychic law. They would have had to close their doors if they were not very, very quick thinking. And that particular day, they sold no psychic readings. They sold stones. And if you bought a stone, you got a free psychic reading. They weren't selling it. If they had done that several weeks in a row, I don't know that they could have continued to get away with it, but for that day, they did. But they had to go to that great length to be able to operate there.
So people have asked me, one of the big questions they've asked me, and Don, can you check your microphone while I'm doing this? Your microphone's reverberating or breaking up.
Oh.
But let me go ahead. People have asked me about my journalistic credentials. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question, but for my credentials. And I've personally been doing citizen journalism for 40 years.
Yeah.
I love being involved with stories. I feel like I'm really good at it. I've done a lot of things. So what type of stories have I covered? Patrick McCollum's, his discrimination, another First Amendment, we covered the entire story for ages on Pagans and Witches Radio about Patrick McCollum, right? Patrick McCollum having to fight the First Amendment rights, the right to religion for prisoners. Today, he's got a great movie out. You should go see it if you get a chance to. But he's been working for a very long time. You got Lady Liberty League, which is always working about inside of weddings and marriages and divorces, amongst other things, about the right of a mother not having the right to possess their child because they're not Christian or they're of an alternative faith. So I don't know where people are getting this idea. But as for my veracity, I very rarely ever put out any stories that I think should have been untrue. It's a matter of interpretation, but it was never untrue. I actually had to live with being labeled a liar for 9 years. This is a true story. For 9 years, I was made a liar of one of the most important quotes from the 2009. Yeah,
I believe it was 2009, wasn't it?
No, it was 2014. It was Australia, 2009.
Yeah.
Australia. All right.
Melbourne.
And that basically I had gotten my reporter credentials. And that was a tough one. They kept saying, "Oh, you want to turn me down for religion?" No, new media. They didn't want new media, but I got that. That's a whole nother victory.
Yeah.
But this one was, I was interviewing Arthur and other pagans. And one of the statements is, one of the things I noticed, and we've got this on tape and film, that Wicca was not being represented. Phyllis Carrot, the lady Phyllis Carrot, was just put on, a trustee. Angie Buchanan and Arthur were on the thing, and that basically Arthur stated very clearly that he did not feel that paganism should include Wicca, that Wicca was actually a new religion, and it's a new 70 years old, was actually a new religion. And that paganism, such as he practiced, represented, and this is the exact definition, the ethno-indigenous groups around the Mediterranean in Eastern Europe. He basically declared that they were the only ones that were the real pagans, the indigenous. And he was doing a great job with indigenous people and everything else. A lot of people, I wrote it exactly as. And then he did not reply. He did not want to do another piece. He got smart. He just stepped out of the way.
Yep.
Great diplomat. He's gone on to serve vice chairman. I really like what he's done. And he got out of the way of the story.
Yeah.
Angie Buchanan basically called me a liar. She said this was never said, even though I proved it. And she basically got the leadership of paganism, whatever it was, to say, no, I didn't. He shouldn't be trusted. He's a liar. And the reason was it's over fundraising for her. Yep. Over the next 9 years, I would never backed off that story.
Yeah.
So we come to Toronto. 2018. And my fight after that, 2009, was that we needed to get Wicca identified as a separate practice from paganism. Since we didn't follow the Parliament's definition of paganism, instead of fighting for it, we got it established. Outcomes, huh?
Absolutely.
And we did a beautiful job. Selena Fox, Belladonna Laveau, you, and we had Oberon there to represent his wife because she was very much part of the movement. Afterward, Oberon asked our people, why did we have to do that? Why aren't we together? And we told him the definition of Parliament as we understood it and defined it. He went directly to Arthur and to launch with, and Dusty Dion took him on to kind of participate. And then Arthur right there. And I would not know this for a couple of hours. So let me go ahead and tell you, a couple of hours later, people were saying they were arguing, I was saying. And then people were
It's rather legendary.
Huh?
It's rather legendary.
People started me on the pack, and some people really apologized for not believing me. And a lot of people were shocked. And Oberon was ballistic. And I'm like, okay, you're not been involved. Like he had right to be there. But he was, and we got our Wicca status, and we maintained that we're Wiccan within the context of interface and the Parliament of World Religions. But it was basically admitted to that is the definition that Arthur, as a trustee, as everything else, was doing.
Yes, it was made very clear. Had really been clear all along, but he made it very clear in that conversation.
Sure, he finally talked. And of course, the parliamentarian, let's be honest, he was on the board of trustee and a parliamentarian trustee who made these accusations. So it's very hard to do so. Today, she called me fake media and everything else. But I stood by it. And I stand by what I've said today. I stand by what I say. I mean, there's other media stories like, go ahead and put your thing back. I think.
Oh, is this not as
good? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm assuming the headset is what was breaking up.
Yes, it was.
I'm on a different machine, and the headset works differently here.
Oh, good. I'm glad
so I
you
get
do it.
Better off without it.
Yep, we're going to have to soon replace Don's computer. So let's talk about this media bit.
And you can see the narwhal of happiness hovering above my head.
Oh, that's good. I mean, so people ask me about this. So now we're dealing with this story. I know people have a hard time telling the difference through the information systems.
People often fail to understand where certain important things lie. And you made a very important point just a few minutes ago that I will pull a little more attention to, and that is that it does not matter how you interpret a word in official situations when there's an official interpretation of that word. You're not going to be able to redefine a word in an organization if you're not a member of that organization. There are all kinds of competing definitions of the word pagan. Parliament of World Religions has a very definite understanding of that term. It doesn't matter what anybody else's definition is if you're trying to deal with the Parliament of the World's Religions. Right. Same with the word Wicca. There are a number of competing definitions of the word Wicca. But if you're trying to deal with the government, the way the government has defined that word is what matters. If you're dealing with the Parliament, the way they have defined that word is what matters. And, you can go fight all the little semantic fights you want. They don't matter in the real world.
So that's been brought up in this argument, which I want to thank everybody for answering the questions, and even the people who have accused me of lying and made up. Oh, my character once again has been carried through the mud. I always say it. My reputation has a better time than I do.
Yes, it certainly does.
Yeah. And you'll probably be hearing my other catchphrase before the end of the day. And so I find those pretty interesting. But we have the paper, the executive orders who are asking for this. And what it is like I said, I'm involved in media, and every once in a while you can get a story, and I've gotten them. Patrick McCollum gave me an Obama story that I beat the press to during the Australian story. So I've broken good stories. My favorite is the story of how to stop Halloween from being a Saturday.
Yes.
And don't you tell me it's a First Amendment issue. It's any of those other things. Do you want to know how I beat it? A cop told me, "Oh my God, let's pray they don't do that. I will never have another Halloween off again." I go, "Why?" He says, "Crime is higher on a Friday and Saturday Halloween than any other Halloween in the cycle."
Mm-hmm. So for people who don't understand the context of that statement, many years ago, there was an attempt in Chicago to change the date of Halloween from October 31st to the Saturday closest to October 31st.
That's right.
And it was defeated, and partly due to Ed Pagan, by bringing into it the police, who did not want to see that. The person pushing it was pushing it from a religious point of view, but from a social point of view, it was not particularly popular with law enforcement. And so they were able to be employed to oppose it in a way the pagan community could not.
Right.
This is similar to the Pentacle Quest that was mentioned. The Pentacle Quest gained a great deal of traction when the argument stopped being phrased in terms of pagan civil rights and became a veterans' civil right issue. That it was a matter of denying veterans their right as veterans to have their religious symbol on their tombstone, rather than denying the pagan symbol as such. That greatly changed how people looked at it. How people look at these things is very, very important.
So,
and back to that thing about rights, how you present them has a lot to do with whether or not you're going to be able to hold on to them.
So let's talk about, let's say, how do we use, and we have the First Amendment as a shield. Okay, how do we use that? Well, you just can't make up religious practices and say, those are my religious practices, and have the government set it off. Let's talk about Native American traditions. They were not legally allowed to practice a lot of their sun dances and other sort of war rituals, and a lot of their rituals until 1971. Because
I thought it was 77.
Maybe 77.
For a long, long time. Yes.
It's just only recently they've only gotten the right to do their powwows and stuff. I mean, we're talking less than 50 years.
There, I believe, still things fought over, even now.
And even now, they're being persecuted. Even in the current ICE raids.
Yes.
They're being arrested and trying to prove their citizenship. So the idea that the government can't stop you from religious practices, there are, peyote things, cannabis, active ingredients. There's a lot of them. They stop them every single time over the concept, and it's over the public good. That it is the public good. That is, disruptive to the government and everything else. And we've seen this, the Satanic Panic, where people were arrested and put in jail for false evidence.
Yes.
I mean,
and in many cases, evidence that was clearly false, even at the time.
Because of their religion. We talk about the Memphis 3. So this idea of invoking the First Amendment as this god-awful, invulnerable shield, hell.
It isn't at all.
I've gone through my own crisis of it. I wrote an article once, very well researched, against a man by the name of Jack, in Chicago. 6 pages out of the Second Chicago magazine, Roundtable magazine, centerpiece, well done, well investigated. And he kept saying, I'm lying. And he eventually sued me because he had to prove that I was lying. And the case was dismissed. I did learn something about it, and I've taught this lesson over and over again. I came really close to violating libel laws. And here's what it is. The only thing that saved me is I did not say boycott his store after this. Did you know you can say things about people You can say this is all true, but you can't make up their mind for them and tell them what to do. At least in the laws of the 1990s against it. It was there. I mean, there are case precedents, but they said that I never actually asked people not to go to a store. I never actually said boycott him. But I came really close because I said, don't go to a store. I mean, personally. And I just said what he did. And it was against women. He was a devastating.
Right, he was violently assaulting women.
Yeah.
Period.
And he was even convicted of it.
Prominent women in the community.
Oh, sure.
I mean, not that that makes a difference, but it should have made some difference to their being believed.
Right.
But
they couldn't find anybody.
Eye-opening experience. You asked me in a recent interview if I'd ever had a moment of really questioning my spirituality. And I referred back to those times, and I'd have to say that was one of the incidents involved in it. Because I never really thought that the community I was part of would behave quite that way. And it was 1978 for the Native American ceremonies.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, now people were doing them, but they were illegal. And that I was a teenager. I mean, this was not long ago.
So how do we invoke this? So there's only two ways. So let's talk how we begin invoking this First Amendment right. Most people don't realize my entire pagan career has been First Amendment and its rights towards paganism. Not the general population, not to women, not to men. Right? I was involved with the clergy standards fight where they tried to establish and try to make into some sort of law. They were. I mean, people do try to make it into some sort of law of how we could, of what qualifies as clergy for pagans, what clergy for Wiccans. I fought that fight. I gave a lot of legal statements. Became the basis of a lot of churches. A lot of churches don't realize what we did to establish it. And all we established was the law was neutral. It didn't care. It did not care how you develop your clergy as long as you follow the law. And so
historically, the community has had some very false ideas about how other religions train their clergy and what the law requires of clergy training.
Right. And it's very simple. In fact, now the community doesn't even talk about it anymore. That fight's over. Every group's allowed to establish their own. But there was a time, right, as the internet was forming, and right there, they wanted to set the standard. They wanted to make it so they had more power for clergy. And let me tell you, I respect somebody who's gotten circle training as a circle chaplain more than somebody who just has one down in the basement. I don't for their training, for their ability to have skills that I might need. Do I think they're any lesser clergy? No, we're all called in our own way. Right? So, like Circle's got this great clergy program if you really want it. But it's there to give you skills, not to say everybody else isn't clergy.
Yes. And it is very, very important in particular skills and also a relatively small number of people.
Right.
On the other hand, it's appropriate to the number who need those skills.
Yeah.
A lot of times people try to fill holes that aren't actually open.
So let's get to this. First thing, you have to have a church that explains your religious practice. And it could be a local state one, an NFP. It doesn't have to be a 501c3. It doesn't have to be any of that. It just needs to be a legally applied church.
Well, if it's a legally incorporated church, it is a 501c3, whether it's been acknowledged or not.
Right. That's a very important thing.
That's another big misunderstanding in the community.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And as long as you follow your 99s or whatever it is that you're required to file for your state, right, you're fine. I mean, we do our annual reports, and So that gives you the first shield, and we talk about it. We actually put in we put a lot of the old rules, but we put in one new rule a while ago. I don't know, and it's still there, about confession. A Corellian clergy priest cannot be forced to testify against their own members. Because we learned a long time ago, not every religion had that. That's a Catholic thing. And we just snipped a little piece out of the Catholics. And so that makes enforceability. So where we have enforceability with others, we have to utilize. And we have to say, we agree. Baptist ministers don't have the same rights of confession. They've been pulled into court because they aren't written that way. But we are as a...
Well, that's one of the things. You actually have to have written policies to be able to enforce policies.
And then if you say that your faith recognizes the diversity of everybody, that's a very big thing. That means you don't even have to go into the letters. You don't have to do it. You say, we believe everybody's equal. Everybody's diverse. Jane Goodall, which I got to meet. And out of that quirky conversation, somebody asked me, would the Corellian tradition acknowledge a gorilla? Right? And I said, I don't know. And do you remember your answer?
If the gorilla can pass the tests and answer the questions, sure.
Well, you said if he could take the oath, he could be a Corellian out of court.
Yeah. If he can, for the outer court, if the gorilla can take the oath, then yes.
And that was in question because there were beginning of talking apes.
Well, and that's true because it has been shown that primates can master quite a bit of language. And so the idea that we may come to a point that there are non-human primates who may have sufficient intelligence and language skills that at some point they might be able to do that is a real consideration. And as far as I'm concerned, the answer is yes, of course we'd accept them if they can do it.
And we may be facing that with AI personalities in the future. What is the whole of it? I don't have any answers on that one right now. Because taking the oath is not enough.
We stand to see quite a few interesting developments in the next 20 years.
Okay. So now you've gotten your religious laws written down. Make sure they cover everything that you believe in. File your paperwork. Now, they may not agree with you, and you may have to prove some things and do tests to see if it works. But a lot of employers will give you the day off. If you said something in your church letterhead, you go off. But you do have your ministers do have the right then, and this is where it gets important, to go into jails to see their constituents, to go into schools to defend their children. You have the right to go to hospitals, to do things, to do visitations, to discuss things with the family. Marriage, you have the right to do marriages in most states. That one's a little bit qualifier because, like in Vegas, you can't do it. There's other places you can't. But in the vast majority of America, you can do it. And in various levels. You can go into funerals and do funerals. All these are very important activities that we do. And also, I've worn my collar across country. I go into events with my ID card that gives me other sorts of privileges. Being a minister is a quasi-legal governmental officer working on the behalf of your community.
Yeah. Another thing that's widely not understood in our community in terms of how it actually works in the real world. Now, there are reasons why things like interfaith language and interfaith symbolism can be very important because of the legal structure of the world that we are in. Being able to access that. I remember reading a post by someone who was complaining that in order to get their legal recognition, they had to use the word temple instead of coven or what have you.
Oh, that's right.
Well, yes, you damn well do, because that is what is currently required. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. If you want the legal status,
Mhm.
what you need to do at this time. You can work to change it, but you need to acknowledge that it's there, or you're not going to be successful.
And we formed our original papers to increase the family from being just a church religion, which was legal too. People don't
Mhm.
realize you can have a house religion and you can even defend your right to do so
Mhm.
as long as you stay within the zoning laws. Let's talk about, yeah, we can talk about ATC and about, he's done so great. Southern Delta Wicca.
Oh, Terry.
Yeah, he
Right.
was the one he had in
Terry Riley.
Florida. He had to fight for years to keep his church inside his home.
Is a most remarkable individual.
Yeah, and so he's gone off
Oh,
now.
yeah. Yeah, and look how well established and successful they are today, because he did not give up that.
Right. So,
But he worked with the system that existed, and instead of saying, "Oh, the world is unfair," he said, "How do I do this successfully?"
okay.
And he did it.
So the next thing for us was our church has also been our Christian Science Monitor and other things. We have a broadcast. We've always had a broadcast ministry alongside.
Mhm.
Because the other thing that you have to do to prove that you have a religion is you have to have regular services. Yes. If you buy and get an NFP that says, let's just take the Flying Spaghetti Monster religion, and you don't hold a certain amount of services, they can take it from you and
Mhm.
strip that protection. So one of the things you can do, and under First Amendment, you have the right to free speech. You have the right to publish. And the only things that have been hit against it is true defamation, which you have to take in court, or actual physical threats, which seems to be no longer enforced. But I'm saying these are the two exceptions: hate speech that can lead to violence, and that's a really thin line. It has to directly lead to violence. I can say I hate you all I want all day. I don't want you around me. I think you should be removed. You can say this all day. I want you dead is the trigger line.
Mhm.
And then they even said, did they have the capability of committing that murder?
Mhm.
I mean, that's how the other side fights. Did they have the capability? Was it just hyperbole,
Mhm.
exaggeration?
Yeah.
These words are often used. But if you're broadcasting your message, you're doing podcasts, you're doing books, start a small publishing house of your booklet.
Mhm.
So do that. If you then you can hand that out to people and you can say, yes, this is where it's written. Establish your theology and establish your right to that theology as often as you can. I'm
Mhm.
not saying become a cult. That's, I'm not asking you to. I'm not telling you to chase everybody away. But every time somebody questions your religion, be ready to answer
Mhm.
it. And so people ask me, so we're going to finish this on one thing. I got two more little pieces. Let us talk about, I talked about the Parliament of the World Religions, where I was despised by uh, some of the parliamentarians themselves. What they did to me, like they threw my classes away. I never got to teach my classes very often. They went after the Corellians, Covenant of the Goddess. Never allowed us as a whole to come in. Never acknowledged Don as a Wiccan. To this day, Covenant of the Goddess does not recognize because of these battles. They don't recognize you as a covenant goddess because you didn't come out of their proper lineages.
Well, it's a little more complex than that. It's a personal.
But
Came
but
out of a
but
personal
to
growth.
this day, they hold that grudge.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah,
As an organization, there are many
we love the
individuals that
individuals.
are different,
So don't think that
but
this is.
the organization has a personal grudge,
Oh, sure.
which
There's many
doesn't
reasons.
bother me because I had no desire to belong to them anyway.
Right. And we've had members who tried to join, and some did, and some didn't.
They are very welcoming to people we throw out.
Yeah. But
Usually
one of
don't
the
bother
things
to ask why we threw them out.
yeah, from 1993 though. So let's talk about what was important for us. How did the Corellians go ahead and get global authentication? Why can we fight some of the battles on a global level? Why can our temples go on a global level? Why do we have members on a global level?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we looking at possibly my next big goal is UN NGOs.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get ourselves involved there. It's going to take another 10 years. Yes, we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in a decade. But the problem, it took us 30 to be on that stage in Chicago as a Wiccan church, as a Wiccan tradition, on the main stage of the parliament. And we had all of these battles to get recognition. And what was originally said that we didn't even qualify. We were there by graciousness in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, one of the big leaders, Dirk Weika. I've always been very grateful for him to read it out. And he didn't do it in a mean way. Everybody goes, well, what does he mean? We don't ever. And he was just talking about the practicality of 100,000 people. Can you improve it? I said, yes. Last sentence said 135. He goes, no. Do you have a database? Do you have an agreement? Do you have an association? No. I said, most people don't.
He pointed out the importance of actually having your numbers on paper.
And
or
from
database.
Yeah. Well, he said paper at that point. Let's be clear. 93 wasn't.
In 93, it was on paper.
That you could prove your numbers, is what he would say.
Mm-hmm.
And that for the UN, it was a minimum of 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they consider. Out of the millions and millions and millions of everywhere, if you could do that small amount. That's why Scientology was allowed.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that, but they said graciousness. To go from there and every battle along the way. We would eventually be in 2023 on stage as a Wiccan church, not a pagan church, but as a Wiccan church with our retired first priest, our new active first priest, and our soon-to-be elder. She didn't know at the time.
Yeah,
our leader of South Africa were there, and they were on the stage with all the other equivalents. There was another Wiccan on that stage by self-declaration. That's Phyllis Carrot. But she was involved with Parliament herself. She's done an amazing job. She was so helpful. But by being a member of that Parliament, it goes, well, that doesn't mean anything. People try to make everything. But it gave us moral equivalency to show that we fight. And it also gives us more allies that I count on and other ways to bring our faith together. All of these things are true.
Yes, absolutely.
It must have felt great to be up there.
Yes, it did. It was wonderful, especially after so many years to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember being very careful not to step on the lion, but because it was a crowded stage. But
absolutely.
It was very nice to be there.
And that's what made it even better. It wasn't us alone being separated. It was us with the group.
Yeah, and it was great.
Important. So do these things. Get involved with interfaith. Do anything you can to kind of prove your moral equivalency. Write it down if you need to. Form a not-for-profit. Even if you don't want to, form it a way that you can hand it to people. And one of the next things I'm doing is that we've been out of bit. I'm not doing very much for like 2 years. 2.5 years. I've been studying real hard this last year. I was doing Gaia Thrift, but I was studying a lot. And on the 17th of February, we're going to start the acceleration process. If you're having trouble with all this stuff, I'm going to start teaching how to start, startups and acceleration programs for businesses and groups. So join me then, and we're going to continue these conversations. But yes, I stand by what I say. What I've got is reliable information, and what it's really about is to see the government has so much money to throw around. If they can use these items when they're presented to ICE and other federal employment guys, this argument is that hoodoo, voodoo, magic spells, chants, etc., can be construed as a threat and domestic terrorism. They're now asking the question to begin building that legal justification. So when they bring people into court, that's what it is. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. Definitions
are they there yet?
In some very interesting directions at present.
Are they there yet? No. This is the beginning of the questioning. And so, yeah, recognize this. Start talking to people. There are people I want you out there organizing with. And yes, I feel very good that you question the information. That's the only reason I came out stating it. And we've seen the executive orders. So, yeah, I mean, we're doing all these things. We need more media. We need you guys to do more reporting too. So, any last thoughts, Don?
Yes, I'm trying to put it together because it's several things that I want
I
to.
do that to people sometimes.
Hmm?
I do that to
Oh,
people sometimes.
yeah. We're living in a time where it's very important that we actually watch what's really happening and not bury our heads in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what we've talked about during this program had to do with interacting with the real world and the actual legal rules of things, rather than burying our heads in the sand and saying we wish it were this other way. You talked about working with Parliament. Parliament had to be worked with in particular ways. It had particular definitions. It didn't matter if you had different definitions. We talk about working with the law. The law has certain requirements and definitions. If you want the protection of the law, you must meet them. If they're not exactly how you'd like it, that doesn't matter. You can work on changing it, but you have to meet reality. I see a lot of people looking at the political situation of the world today and saying, oh, this isn't so. Well, yes, it is so. We'd better be paying attention to it if we wish to continue to survive and thrive. I firmly believe we can, but it's not going to be by turning a blind eye. It's going to be through skill and diplomacy and individual strength as organizations.
And don't discount numbers. I mean, don't discount
Numbers are vitally important.
Weapons, words are weapons. Numbers are defense. Ask any lawyer and ask any accountant.
Yes.
They will say that words are weapons. We must learn to use our words better.
Mm-hmm.
Numbers, any accountant will tell you, don't lie, whatever that means. So I'll give you another one of our victories. They didn't turn out to be as much of a victory. But a lot of community ignores this. But this is when when Lawrence Lerner and a huge team on the West Coast were trying to put together the Pagan Credit Union. And they botched the opening in some ways. It just made people feel uncomfortable, including our own tradition. But eventually, I would push for us to say, we'll back it. Right? To back it. I mean, it was like not enough, they needed 3,000 people. I go, I've got that tomorrow. I can send you that letter. Yeah, but your people turned it down. Okay, let me talk to them. And we sent in the letter, and they were immediately moved up to the next level.
Yeah.
Because government recognized our numbers. It's the only reason they got it.
Yeah.
The only reason it happened. Because they couldn't put together with all these little groups 3,000 people. So your numbers are important. If you're trying to talk about any sort of solidarity, work your numbers. Well, thank you, folks. We're gonna let you guys go. Blessings. And now I'm going to ask Don for a final prayer.
Okay.
I think they need to do their own prayers. I think in this one they do. I do. Pray if you want to.
Yeah.
Eric Cooper's just saying we have the potential to head down the path of witch burning. So I'll have you back on. Difference being many in our pagan community are armed. Yes, there is that. All right, folks. Have a good evening. I'll be back tomorrow. And who knows what I'm going to be talking about.
Okay.
And if you want to see Don pray, write him, talk to him, get him on the air on his own.
Okay.
You're going to say something?